What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the best $200 phones that you could buy in 2025. So I want to kick it off with this price point because it's very affordable for a lot of people, and you get quite a bit of power and features for the money that you spend here. So this is going to be, of course, in the used refurbished marketplace. I do have one mid-range phone on here that you can buy for new under 300 bucks. And yeah, so let's talk about my favorite phone is the Galaxy S22 Plus. I think that's the best on this list in my opinion. So you do have a pretty premium design on here. It's a glass back, aluminum frame, IP68 dust and water resistant. Has that Samsung cutout that they got rid of that I still really like. And overall, it's still a very premium feeling phone and very comfortable phone. It's much more comfortable than a boxier Galaxy S22 Ultra. Now, this phone does have the dynamic AMOLED display. It is 120 Hz HDR10 Plus, and it's 1750 nits peak brightness. So in direct sunlight, this phone is still doing a very good job. It's still very visible. So it's a 6.6 inch display, so it's not a super small phone or anything like that. So it is a flat display as well too, which a lot of people like over the Ultra. It's 1080p 393 for the PPI. Very sharp, very beautiful display, very good colors. Overall, awesome panel here. The good thing about the S22 Plus is that it launched with Android 12. Its pledge was 4 years of majorOS updates, so you will get the Android 15 update that we're waiting for. I will cover that for you guys, but currently on One UI 6.1.1. And in the US, we do have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 model here. I do not have access to the Exynos 2200 model. And this 8 Gen 1, it's an okay processor. And the reason why I say that, because this phone, to me, it doesn't get super hot, but for long periods of gaming, that is something that a lot of people say it can warm up a little bit. I've never had this phone like crash on me or really had any type of major performance problems with this phone. But if you are like a mobile gamer and you play competitively for like hours and hours, then yeah, you could get a little bit of heating. So there's something to throw out there. It's also, the base model is 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM. And also, not to mention, this phone also has the Galaxy AI features. The circle to search is here. So like I said, it feels almost exactly like a S24, a regular S24, pretty much, as far as the OS and everything goes. So this phone does have pretty decent speakers on here. They're pretty loud, good bass quality. The fingerprint scanner works. All of your extra features are there, Samsung DeX and all that stuff. I do want to touch on the cameras. Now, for the cameras, you have a 50 megapixel standard, a 10 megapixel telephoto with 3x optical, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 8K 24, and you have a 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. Now, image quality looks very good, as you can see from the stills here. You get very good detail, very good consistency between the main lens and the ultra wide. The 3x zoom is really well. You get a good amount of detail. This goes up to 30x zoom as well too. And it's the same thing for the video, very good video. Now, where this phone, you will start to see like a little difference between this and the S24, is that it's not as good in like low light photography as the S24 or something like that. So, but everything else, I mean, is really solid. I have a comparison if you guys want to see the actual camera difference between this and the S24, so please check that out. But overall, very good cameras, very good cameras for the price. The battery life is also pretty solid on here. It's got a 4500 milliamp hour battery. It actually has 45 watt charging, which is really good. Wireless charging and reverse wireless charging is on board. I get pretty good screen on time as a a lighter user. I really don't have any major complaints with the S22 Plus. So overall, just it's a solid device in pretty much all categories. Next is going to be the Pixel 7 Pro. This phone took everyone by surprise, and the reason why is because Google extended the software support for Pixel phones. So they're going to be just a really good recommendation for people who are really pressed about software updates with old flagships. You can find this phone easily around the $200 price point. It will get up to Android 18 now, guys. It got 5-year pledge. It launched with Android 13. Absolutely insane. So that is just awesome from Google. Now, the phone's design still is a very nice looking phone. Aluminum frame, IP68 dust and water resistant, and still pretty comfortable to hold. It's not like super sharp or boxy or anything like that. So overall, the design, it has that classic pixel design. Now, the display on here, it's an LTPO AMOLED display, 120 Hz HDR10 Plus. 1500 nits peak brightness is pretty good, so no like major issues outside. It's not the brightest, but it does a decent job. It's a 6.7 inch 1440p panel, so you get the full 1440p. You can watch content. Everything looks really crisp. And it's 512 for the PPI. So I don't really have too many major issues with the display on here. It is a curved panel, so just do note that. But overall, very nice colors, very smooth display on here. Now, this phone, it runs stock Android, super smooth still. I was running the Android 15 beta. I did that, and now I run the the official one, and it's very smooth. It is buttery, fast. So it's something that I really like about these Pixel phones, and it just getting up to Android 18 is just awesome. So you do have the Google Tensor G2 processor. So it's not all good with this phone. So this phone, again, you have 12 gigabyte RAM, 128 gigs of internal storage. Now, the thing here is that the Tensor G2 processor, it is pretty fast for doing your daily tasks, and the Android 15 update has helped with like animations, and everything is just really buttery smooth. The only issue I had with this phone was like if it was hot outside, because I would record my YouTube shorts with this phone back in the day, and yeah, I got like a heat warning and it degraded the resolution. And yeah, that was the only issue I had. But everything else, like doing like a little light gaming and multitasking, just regular stuff on your phone, perfectly fine. But yeah, the Tensor processor can definitely get a little bit hot for sure. Even when like gaming, it can get a little bit hot, but it never like actually crashed and start like bugging out. The speakers are very good on the Pixel 7 Pro, so you have really good speakers on here. The fingerprint scanner is optical. It's okay. It's not the ultrasonic, so it's fast enough. And then also you can do the face unlock. Now, the thing about the Pixel 7 Pro is you're getting the best cameras, in my opinion, on this list as far as the stills go. It's still taking excellent quality photos. It's a 50 megapixel standard, 48 megapixel periscope telephoto, 5x optical zoom, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and then you also do have 4K 60 video with a 10.8 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K 60. The shots look great. I love the Google image processing. I love the colors. I love the skin tones as well. And then also, it just takes really good photos just in general, guys. So it's my personal favorite on the list when it comes to photography. So if that's your main thing, then I would definitely get this phone. Now, the battery life is another thing that's just kind of like average to below average. It's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 23 watt charging, wireless charging as well, reverse wireless charging. The battery life is okay on here. You can kind of get through a day depending on what you do. If you're a heavy gamer, then no. But overall, decent, battery life. The best iPhone for around the $200 price point is pretty much going to be the iPhone 12. I don't know why the iPhone 11 has not dropped in price. It's still kind of close to the iPhone 12 around that $200 price point. And the iPhone 12 is a fantastic phone if you are, or if you prefer iPhones. You still have a very nice design on here. It's aluminum frame, IP68 dust and water resistant. And Apple's design, if you look at the iPhone 16, really hasn't changed too much. And so I don't think this phone looks outdated. Now, you do have a pretty nice display on here. It's a Super Retina XDR OLED display. It's HDR10, 1200 nits peak brightness, which is, it's okay. And then we also have a 6.1 inch display. It is 1170 by 2532, so pretty nice resolution on here. 460 for the PPI. It's overall a very nice display color wise. It does have the kind of old school notch up top, but besides that, I mean, it's a perfectly fine display. I really don't have any issues with it. I think most people who prefer iPhones, the 60 hertz probably isn't going to bother you. They still have 60 hertz on the iPhone 16, unfortunately, but yeah, I think overall the display is very nice. So this phone, again, got iOS 18, and it's been running pretty smooth for the most part. I really haven't had any performance problems with this phone. The Apple A14 chip is actually still really fast. You can play PUBG at HDR Extreme, and yeah, I have no issues with performance, bouncing throughout applications and stuff like that. It is still a very fast phone thanks to Apple's optimization here. Now, the base on here is 64 gigs and 4 gigs of RAM, so you can get around this like putting stuff in the cloud, but it might make a little more sense for you guys who are heavier users with video and stuff like that, or just games, or just in general to get the 128 gig if you can. But the speakers on here sound pretty good, pretty good amount of bass quality, and Face ID works just as well as the new iPhones. Now, when it comes to the overall photos on here, the iPhone 12 still takes some pretty good photos. I did a comparison with the iPhone 16 if you guys want to check that out. I would say a lot of people in the comments were saying that they didn't see a dramatic difference with the 12 versus the 16. Now you've got a dual 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel ultra wide. You do have 4K 60 video on here, and you also have a 12 megapixel selfie that can shoot in 4K 60. And I think the photos still look pretty good. You get pretty good color on here, pretty good dynamic range. The ultra wide is pretty consistent. iPhone video, especially on older iPhones, is really solid, good dynamic range. And overall, I think the shots are pretty good. Low light photography is decent. It's not as good. I would say you would have to go for a 13, 14 if you want better low light photography. But overall, it's a solid camera. Now, as far as battery life on the 12, it's okay. Again, it's not really that impressive. I don't think the battery life really gets that much better on these base models until you get to like the 13, especially the 14. But again, always check your battery health as well too. But you have a 2,815 milliamp hour battery. Cool thing about the 12 is you can still use the MagSafe accessories on here as well. You have a wireless charging on here too. So overall, the iPhone 12 is a pretty solid device. Like I said, I wouldn't go below this, if you don't have to for this price point, because it's an overall solid device. Next is the Moto G Stylus. Now this is a mid-range phone. You could find this phone for very cheap. I think in the used refurbished marketplace you can get it for like $164 unlocked, and then for the new version it'll be like $250. So if you guys don't want to use refurbished phone, this is a phone that is really good that you can find for less than $300. Now I really like this phone, guys. It's got the built-in pen or the stylus, and then you also have a really nice textured back on here. It is a plastic frame, but the phone does not feel cheap at all. It still feels like a very well-made, solid device. There is no actual IP rating on here. It's a water repellent design, so you cannot get this drop it in the pool or anything like that. So just do note that. Now this does have a very nice POLED display. It's 120 Hz, 1200 nits brightness, and then we also have 6.7 inch display, 1080p 395 for the PPI. Pretty respectable bezels on here as well at 88.2%. And overall, the screen is fantastic. Great colors, super smooth, decent, brightness, but I really like the screen for a mid-range device. Now, the only drawback to this particular phone is that it only gets one major Android upgrade. So we'll get Android 15, but after that, it'll only get security patches, unfortunately. But this has the Motorola software, which is really nice. It's kind of like stock Android with a few like little Motorola features. But overall, very smooth, really nice. The Snapdragon 6 Gen 1 is on here. I was able to play PUBG at pretty good settings, Call of Duty. So I was able to do a little bit of gaming. So this is perfectly fine for any of my, kind of like light gamers, I guess. And then also what's cool about this phone is you actually do have micro SD card support, so you can actually expand the storage on this phone. And this phone also has a headphone jack, so you just get all the features that a lot of people like with this mid-range phone. So that is pretty cool. It's 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM. On the base model, you can get the 256 gig if you want, but this phone has pretty good solid speakers as well. I was pretty impressed with that. Solid speakers, good bass, overall balanced sound. And then the cameras, you would think, the cameras where they would cut the, kind of cut for the budget. But the cameras, it takes pretty good stills. It's a 15 megapixel standard, 13 megapixel ultra wide. There is no 4K 60 on here. It's only 4K 30. And the 32 megapixel selfie only shoots again in 4K 30 as well, which is not like a huge deal because I usually, film in like 1080 60 anyway. But overall, it's a solid camera. I was really impressed with the image quality and the processing. The ultra wide is pretty nice. There is no like dedicated telephoto lens as well that you would get on like a an older flagship like the S22 Plus, but it's a solid camera. The best thing about this phone is really the battery life, guys. It's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. It has really good battery life. The battery life lasts all day for me. I was really impressed with that. 30-watt charging, 15-watt wireless charging, and just overall solid in the battery department. So zero complaints. You do have a built-in fingerprint scanner. It is optical. It does work fine. I really didn't have any issues with that either. The G Style is just an impressive phone that kind of flew below the radar that I always try to like push out. And last on the list is, so if you pick this phone up in good condition, you can actually find it for around 230 bucks. The S21 Ultra is a fantastic phone. If you pay a little bit more, I think 30 extra bucks, you can actually get this in excellent condition as well. But you do have on here an aluminum frame. It still has a really nice premium design on here. It's IP68 dust and water resistant, and it also does have S Pen support, even though it's not built into the phone. And this phone is a very comfortable phone to hold. So there have been rumors that Samsung is actually going to go back to this design because of how comfortable it was at the time. So overall, nothing about this phone looks outdated. You still have the matte finish with the really great camera cutout. I really think it still looks excellent in 2024 here. You have a beautiful 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display. It is a curved panel, but it's not a dramatic curve. It does curve slightly. It's dynamic AMOLED 120 Hz HDR10 Plus with a peak brightness of 1500 nits, and it is also full 1440p 515 for the PPI. And like I said, even though it's a bigger phone, it is easier to hold than something like a Galaxy S24 Ultra. It's not as wide, so I think it's easier to hold for people with smaller hands. And then also, this phone, it is running the One UI 6.1 update, and it will also get the Android 15 update as well too, which will be really exciting. We're going to be cover that, so be sure to subscribe. This phone is also running the Snapdragon AAA processor, 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM. And I've done a ton of comparisons, ton of videos on this phone, and this phone overall general performance is fine. I did a like day in a life with this phone. It's a very fast phone. It's very smooth, especially with the One UI 6.1 update. And I think the only thing here that you'll notice is that it does get a warmer than usual if you're doing long periods of gaming. I've never had it crash on me or anything like that. I'm not a intense gamer, but overall performance is fine. You can play pretty much Call of Duty, PUBG at really great settings on here, no problem. So this phone, it does have the circle to search, but it doesn't have any of the AI features, so just do note that that's not going to be there. You also have pretty decent speakers on here. They get fairly loud, so no issues with these speakers. Good amount of bass going on here. And then we also do have, of course, all of our other features like Samsung desktop support, and again the pen support is really great on here. The ultrasonic fingerprint scanner is really fast as well. The best thing about the S21 Ultra is that it has a really great camera setup. It's a 108 megapixel standard, 10 megapixel telephoto with 3 times optical zoom, and then a 10 megapixel periscope telephoto with 10 times optical zoom. You also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can also shoot in 8K 24, and then you have a 40 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. So the overall cameras are really good. Like I said, I took this with me to Vegas, and the picture just came out so good. The epic thing about this phone at this price point is that the zoom photography is extremely good. You can't find anything else at this price point that's going to take excellent 10 times and 30 times zoom shots. You get the 100 times on here, and it actually still looks good. So I was really impressed with that. Battery life is okay on the S21 Ultra. It's not anything amazing. Honestly, you can get close to 6 hours of screen on time. As a lighter user, I was able to get pretty close, but if you're doing gaming and stuff like that, I just do know you're gonna have to charge this phone, and the charging speeds is not all that great. I don't think it's 25 watts. So it's not really that fast. It's got a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. It does have wireless and reverse wireless charging. Overall, I mean, it's a fantastic pick. That pretty much it. That wraps the list up. So be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.